All right, so hi everyone. Thank you for being here at Joe's Spice Up Your Life Stories webinar. My name is Megan and I am one of the board directors on FIGT's board. And on behalf of FIGT, we are so grateful for Joe hosting this webinar. A few housekeeping parameters for this webinar. One, please keep your mic on mute until Joe prompts for feedback. I invite you to use the chat feature to ask questions or to comment. I'll be moderating those and funneling them to Joe at that appropriate time when she's going to engage the questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for the entire FIGT community to access for 30 days. After that, it will be moved to the membership section on FIGT's website. And for more information about being an FIGT member, please visit FIGT.org. So without further ado, let me introduce Jo. Jo is the author of over 30 books. She is a journalist, a blogger, a poet, and the creator of the Life Story Jar program. She has been sharing what she knows with others to help them grow their writing for over 30 years. And she is the creator and founder of Summertime Publishing and Springtime Books. She is also one of FIGT's platinum sponsors, so we are grateful for her and this time we have with her. So thank you, Jo. Take it away.
Hi everybody, it's absolutely lovely to see you and to notice that you're coming in from all over the world. Thank you very much for coming to listen to my presentation about the tool that I invented and that I call Spice. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to share my presentation with you. So I'm going to share my screen because it's very important at some point that you can see what's happening. So I'm going to share my screen. I promise you I will come back. I think I will be gone for 20 minutes or so, and while you're having the presentation, if anybody wants to get a copy of the presentation, I really don't mind if you ask me for it and you email me. You can email me through my website joeparfitt.com or ask somebody like Megan, somebody from FIGT. I'm very happy to share it afterwards. So we're going to start off with my presentation, and then after that I am going to give you a writing exercise to do, just a short one for 5 minutes, putting into practice what I'm teaching you. After that, you are going to be invited to share your writing with me, with everybody who's listening. It's completely optional. There's no way I can listen to everybody. I will probably manage, depending on time, 3 or 4 of you may be. And you will be able to nominate yourself to share and get the live feedback by raising your hand. And by raising your hand, what you will do is you will go to the participants icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you will see that there is a raise hand option on that screen. So those will be, as you raise your hands, Megan will moderate, and the first people who put their hands up will be the first people that I will invite to read. I will give a very short piece of feedback to their writing to see if they really are adopting the Spice tool. After that, I shall open to questions. And then right at the end, the very last screen will be a screen of links to various free things you can get from my website. And I shall put that up there just long enough for you to take a photograph of it. And then I shall come back and I shall say goodbye. Again, if you ask for the presentation, then Megan or I or somebody will be able to send it to you and you'll see those links. So I am now going to disappear and share my screen with you. So here you can see on the screen a beautiful description of what I call the Life Story Jar, which was designed by FIGT's very own artist in residence, Kath Brew. I'm not talking about the Life Story Jar today, so if you're intrigued about it, then there's another webinar that I'm doing, not with FIGT, but it's also free, that's coming up in 2 weeks' time. So you'll have to go to my website to find out about that. So spice up your life stories. What is spice? Well, that's what you're going to find out. But before that, I'm just going to tell you how I invented Spice and why I invented Spice. Oh dear, and now my presentation's not moving up, so there we go. Whoops. Why me? This is actually a very old picture from 2012 of me with a pile of books, because yes, I have written 32 books of my own, and I've helped well over 100 other people write their own books. I've been teaching for many years. I absolutely love teaching. And I have found myself helping more and more people to write memoirs. And as I did that, I realized that there had to be a trick to writing about your life, writing a story that made it compelling, because I realized that novels have to be compelling. They have to have plot and pace and character. But so did memoir. Memoir had to be written in such a way that it was as good as fiction. So I decided that what I was going to do was I was going to read a number of memoirs, and I was going to analyze them, dissect them, take them apart and see what is in those memoirs. What does everybody do that makes those memoirs live again and leap off the page, so that the reader will see what the author saw. And so I worked it out. I read 25 memoirs, and I worked out that they all had 5 things in common. So I worked out what they were, and then I thought, well, it's no good just saying the 5 secrets to writing life story. That's not going to be memorable enough. And so I decided that I wanted to create an acronym. I didn't know what the acronym was going to be. And I thought, and I thought, and I feel embarrassed to say this, but it actually took me 2 years to invent my acronym. And the acronym I came up with was SPICE. So that's why you're going to learn something that I call the SPICE tool. So why might you be interested in writing life story? You might not want to write a full-length memoir. Well, stories are important. Stories are important, and being able to write your stories are important because A, you might want to write a memoir, but B, you might not want to write a memoir, you want to write a blog. And the most compelling blogs are the ones where people write about themselves, and they write stories that are compelling and memorable and inspiring. People who want to write non-fiction or articles, they will find that the points they are making will become more memorable and will become embedded in the minds of the people who are reading them if they tell stories, either they're anecdotes of their own or case studies of other people. Writing in stories will help you write much better, more compelling letters and emails. Writing stories down is the most fantastic legacy you can leave to your family. Stories that work are memorable, inspiring. They show who you are. They show what matters to you. They make your experience live again when you write them, but they also make your experience live for people who don't know you when they read them. Lewis Carroll, who wrote Alice in Wonderland, said, "We write not to be understood, but to understand." And in writing our stories, we do start to understand more about ourselves, what matters, what makes us tick. Okay, are you ready to find out what SPICE is all about? SPICE stands for specifics, place, incident, character, and emotion. Specifics, they're the details. One thing that makes me really cross, and cross is a very British word, I know, is when people say it was an amazing view, it was breathtaking, the meal was absolutely exquisite, it was delicious, it was mouth-watering. What a gorgeous looking woman. Those are what I call empty words. They mean nothing, nobody can picture what you mean, they're useless. But if you say they were overlooking a valley filled with deciduous trees, and that there were a patchwork of fields dotted with white lambs and their mothers, that there were cows lowing in the fields underneath apple trees filled with pink blossom. Immediately, the picture starts to emerge. So specifics are the details. If you don't include details in your writing, people will not be able to see what you saw. Now, there is a fantastic trick to specifics that you might not realize work at all. But for example, if you were writing about living in Paris and you said you walk down the boulevard, that immediately gives people a picture, because a boulevard, people know, is a wide street that's generally got trees down the side or in the middle. But if you say you walk down Boulevard Saint-Honoré, you may not know Boulevard Saint-Honoré at all. Is it Boulevard Saint-Honoré or Rue Saint-Honoré? Anyway, whatever it is. If you put in some French words, even if somebody has never been to Paris, immediately the scene becomes more vivid. So place names are really useful. Saying that somebody's wearing stilettos is great, is something. Saying that they're red Manolo Blahniks, and immediately you see far more. So specifics are very useful. Place. Place is the scene. Place is where whatever it is that you write about happens. It can be in a town, it can be in a sitting room, it can be a chair, it can be an office, but it's where the action takes place. You don't need to describe absolutely everything, but it really helps if you can show the reader where something is happening so that they can picture it. Incident. This is something must happen in whatever it is you're writing, so it's not just a flat, full page of description. An incident can be as small as your grandmother passing you a cup of tea in a cup and saucer. Very small. It can be as small as somebody opening the door. It does not have to be an earthquake. It does not have to be a road accident. It can just be something that happens that makes something move. Now on to C, character. For a story to come alive, it needs a person in it. Now, if you're in the story, then you are that person. You are a character. Even if what you're writing is real, you need to consider that the people you write about are like characters in a novel. They need to be compelling. The reader needs to be able to imagine them, to picture them in their mind's eye. So you need to give the people in your stories some sort of memorable trait. It might just be that they wear their blonde hair in a scrappy bun. It might be that they've got a moustache and a bald head. It might be that they walk with a limp. It might be that they have a stammer. It might be that they're always interrupting, but it's something that the reader can hang on to. And finally, emotion. For a piece of writing to be compelling and for it to resonate with the reader, we need to know how you felt, how whatever it is that happened made you feel. And the best way to do it is to show it. So rather than saying, Granny was unhappy, show how Granny reached into her clipped-topped handbag, pulled out a lavender-scented tissue and dabbed at her eyes. That way we've got character, specifics as well, and that will help to evoke the emotion because we're showing rather than telling. So if you forget absolutely everything from today, but just remember the word spice and try and remember what they stand for: specifics, place, incident, character, and emotion, and that every story you write should have a small number of elements of these in it, then you will write something that is way, way better than something would have been without spice. What we're going to do now is I am going to read you a piece of writing about something to do with me that I consider does not have spice. And then after that, I'm going to show you a different version filled with spice. So you're going to see for yourself how it works. This is a picture here of my writer's circle in The Hague. I love running a writer's circle. I have run them everywhere. I have lived in the world for 30 years, and this is my one in The Hague just a few weeks ago. I'm going to tell you about my first ever writer's circle. When I moved to Oman with my family, I soon realized I missed my work, colleagues, and members of the writing club I'd left behind. As I'm a writer by profession, I decided to set up a monthly writer's circle. I would set some tasks and give feedback to the people who came along and hope that through this I'd meet some like-minded people. I decided to run it for free from my home, provide the refreshments and see how things went. This was in the days before the internet, so I typed a simple notice and pinned it on the notice boards of a few supermarkets and waited for the phone to ring. It did, and the first meeting brought 8 new members. We all loved it, and after a while the regulars asked me if I could run a paid-for workshop for them. So I did. 26 years later, and I still run a writer's circle wherever I live in the world, and have discovered that the benefits and repercussions of doing this are far more and further reaching than I could have imagined. I make friends, I find clients, I help people to develop into confident, productive writers, and some go on to start their own circles too. So that is what I consider to be a really boring piece of writing. And as I read that, I deliberately tried to include as little spice as possible. So it was, hopefully, it was not very easy for you to picture the writer's circle. Now, what happens when we add spice? So what I've done here is I have decided to use red for specifics, green for place, grey for incident, yellow for character, and pink for emotion. And you can see if you look at this, which is actually only half of the story, there's another page coming up, you can see that I have got elements of all of this in there. And so here we go. So just listen this time and take a quick glance at the screen so that you can see how much colour is there. But as I read, see how much of this you actually picture in your mind's eye. In 1993, I moved to the sunny Sultanate of Oman with my husband Ian and our 2 little boys, Sam and Josh. On the surface, it was a charmed life. I could see and hear the ocean from the frangipani-filled garden that surrounded our white 3-story villa. On the roadsides, fat palm trees fluttered their leaves gently, like fingers enticing me to admire the thick bunches of dates that swelled like udders along their trunks. When I wasn't taking the kids to the beach, I was cooking with those dates. But this wasn't enough for me. I had a fiercely professional identity as a computer teacher, author and journalist, but had left this behind in Dubai when we moved. I felt rudderless without my work and had no one to talk to about writing. I wished there was a writer's circle I could join. Dare I start my own? I had enough ideas and experience and hoped I could give reasonable feedback to others. If I ran a circle, I'd meet like-minded people and do some writing at least. In the end, I decided to try and run one from home, free of charge, 1 evening a month. I typed a simple notice, pinned it on the cluttered notice boards of the supermarkets popular with expats, Prise Unique and Alfair, I think, and waited. The Muscat Writers' Circle was more successful than I could have dreamed. Together, we created a safe space where people could share their stories without judgment. I discovered I loved nothing more than helping to inspire, encourage, and nurture new writers so they could grow. Mentoring others comes with its own reward. Then, one evening, a conversation changed my life forever. "Joe, would you be able to run us a more formal session one day?" Sue asked at the end of one session as we were collecting up the plates and wine glasses. Sue, I soon discovered, was always happiest in a kitchen. "A writing workshop. One morning?" Sure, I replied, my heart beating a little faster. I'd never run one formally before, but I was never one to turn down a challenge. If I could teach word processing, maybe I could teach writing too. For money, Sue continued, following me into the kitchen and placing empty wine glasses beside the sink, we wouldn't expect you to do it for nothing. Mornings are much more convenient than evenings, you know, because the kids are at nursery. Totally unexpectedly, my circle had become a source not just of new friends, but of paying clients. Sue turned out to be a food scientist, and the following year we co-authored and published a successful cookbook called Dates. 26 years later, and thousands of students have attended my workshops and writing retreats all over the world. I still run a free writers' circle one weekday morning a month, wherever I find myself, and have now taken the circles online too. I have learned that the benefits and repercussions of doing this are greater and further reaching than I could have imagined. So, there you go. There is a very, very quick description of what spice is all about. So it's going to be your turn in a minute. Now, when I show you the next screen, you're going to see there is a slide that has got spice on it. It's a double-page spread with specifics, place, incident, character, and emotion on it. And I invite people, when they take my real live workshops, to write a few notes on this sheet to help them to remember to include all the elements of spice. Now, you can take a photograph of the screen, you can write them down in your book, or you can download them. They have been put with the sign up, I believe, Megan. So you should be able to download them from there. You can also email me and I'll send it to you. And I think we're going to also make it downloadable from the chat option here today. So it's quite a useful thing, and you're going to use it in the next exercise. Now I'm going to tell you what your exercise is going to be. I have picked something so boring, it's not true, because I want you to see how easy it is to embellish it with a bit of spice. Now, we're all in lockdown. We all are deprived of face-to-face contact. So I want you to write about the last time you actually spoke to somebody face-to-face, not on Zoom, not on your WhatsApp video screen, not on Facebook Messenger, face-to-face. Maybe that person was the delivery man who'd put something through your door. Maybe it was the person who delivered your shopping this morning. Maybe it was you were shouting out of your window at a neighbour. Or maybe you're lucky enough to be with your husband like me, and the last person I spoke to was him when we went for a walk and had a bowl of butternut squash and turmeric spiced soup for lunch. So you're going to write about the last time you spoke to somebody face to face. You are going to make sure you add spice. You're going to paint a picture with your pen. That's a term I find really helpful to remind you what spice is all about. It's about painting a picture. That's the specifics. You're going to show where it took place. If it was just a delivery driver, then it was in your hallway. That's fine. Just show us a little bit about it. Describe what happened, even if it was just a package being delivered or giving your husband a bowl of soup. Let us meet the person you spoke to. So that's the character. Show us a little bit about them. Perhaps show us some dialogue. Dialogue is the best way to show character, because when you use dialogue, the words people say, the way they speak, and the things they do after they've spoken, like I could say, please could I have some pepper, asked Ian, rolling up his sleeves as he dug his spoon into the soup. Immediately you see more of my husband, you know that he's hungry for his soup, and the dialogue has used that. And then I want you to let us know how the interaction made you feel. So were you grateful that your husband was there having lunch with you? Did you feel, did the soup, the fact there was turmeric in the soup, take you back to living in Malaysia and being able to buy fresh turmeric root from the market, and it made you wistful for a while? What did it do to you? Did it make your stomach twist? Did it make tears prick behind your eyes? Did it make you longingly look at the lemongrass that was on the side and remember Malaysia? What did it make you do that shows your emotion? So you're going to have 5 minutes. Now that might not seem very long, but you would be surprised how much you can do in 5 minutes and how long 5 minutes will feel. So what I'm going to do is I am going to invite you to pick up a pen and paper. I'm going to share the screen that repeats these instructions in case you get lost. I am going to make sure that I am muted and set my timer for 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, I will come back and Megan will moderate the first people who put their hands up offering to share. Please do share. This is a safe space. And if nobody shares, I shall nominate somebody who's one of my clients who I can see up there, or is in one of my writers' circles who I know is here. I shall nominate them and put them on the spot because they can get annoyed with me later. So, but I urge somebody else to try and share. Hopefully this has been nothing that will be upsetting. So it's an example for you to use all the elements of spice. So let me just share the screen. Oh, it's not sharing. That's annoying. There we go. This is the spice chart. Take a photograph of it. You know now what spice stands for. This gives you a moment to just write that down. I'll just leave it there for a few moments. You can also download it, print it out, use it later. I invite you to use this as often as you like. I'm going to move on now to your instructions. And I'm going to mute myself and set my timer for 5 minutes. Good luck, everybody. Okay, you can now finish your current sentence. I'll just give you a few more seconds and then I shall return. And I am back. So I know that 5 minutes isn't very long. I also know how much you can write in 5 minutes. So if you haven't finished, that's fine. We will still be able to give some feedback on what you have managed to write in the time. So Megan, has anybody put their hand up, or are we going to have to wait for somebody to put their hand up?
No one has put their hand up yet, but we do have an entry from Sue in the chat. So that's something to read at one point, but we do have a bunch of hand raised now. So Geraldine, would you like to share?
Is Geraldine muted?
Let me unmute here. There we go. All right, you are unmuted, Geraldine. Nope. Oh, muted. Unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Geraldine.
Okay. Hi. Is it Amanda?
No, that's Megan. That's Megan.
Hi, Megan. I didn't say hi before. Hi.
Oh,
Hi, Joe.
thanks. Hi.
A hot, sunny, breezy day in Connemara as I walked up the little stony driveway to Breed's house with white, fluffy, westy Oscar trotting by my side. I was minding Oscar for 2 months while his owner Lynn was away in America. There was Breed's garden table, newly stained a dark, rich brown with 4 heavy chairs firmly planted around it. Breed saw me from the house and waved. I sat down and she bounded out. "A cuppa?" she said. "Of course," I replied. "Have you got some of my oat milk?" "Yes, I have." The kettle must have been boiling because she reappeared in a fraction of a second carrying 2 hot mugs of tea. She set mine down near me and hers at the opposite side of the table where she sat. Oscar lay down beside me, surveying this new place with its crazily paved patio we were sitting on, in front of green lawn with the odd small tree waving to us. It was so good to see Breed, only the second person I'd seen in 4 weeks. I usually see her every day, but those days seem very far away.
Thank you. Wow, you actually finished as well. That's amazing. So let's think, loads of specifics. In fact, that was incredibly vivid. I could picture so much, and you weren't cliched with the words that you'd chosen. I loved Oscar. You gave us enough of him for us to be able to see him, and you made him into quite a character. We had him moving, we knew he was a Westie, we had him surveying the scene. He had emotion too, so that was really cool. Loved what you did with the table. It was very, very vivid and easy to picture. And I liked how you used just the simple dialogue of cuppa from Breed, because people sometimes get a bit tied up in knots about dialogue. They think it's got to be clever in order for it to have any value, but it doesn't have to be clever at all. It just, cuppa is fine. It's what you do with it, and it's the tag that you put with it that makes it work. So we realized that Breed was a lovely, friendly person. I liked the dialogue. It was so natural, I didn't even notice it, which was great. I don't think you let me see her, but you let me feel her, and you let me see her emotion and your emotion. And your emotion was evoked through the fact that you obviously love the place, and through the fact that you haven't seen anybody for so long, and how much you appreciated that. So you showed us that really well. So thank you, Geraldine.
Thanks, Jo. Thank you.
I would just like to say that you said the green grass, which is a cliche, but actually it works. So sometimes you can repeat yourself and sometimes you can't. And with green grass, I think it worked really well because it gave us the feeling of the grass extending and going further and further on, because you said it twice. So well done. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Who else would like to go now, Megan? Who's my next victim?
Emma? Let me unmute you. All right, Emma.
Hi.
Hi, Emma.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, this is about an interaction I had this morning. The message flashed up on my screen. It wasn't yet 8 a.m, but any parent knows we're all awake. Are you home? I've something to drop off. I'm 5 minutes away. It was a new friend. All my friends are new here. We've only been here for 8 months. I thought for a moment. I was home and I was up, but we were far from organised.
Could you slow down? You're reading really fast.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I thought for a moment. I was home and I was up, but we were far from organised. I was about to jump in the pool for my daily swim, but having not spoken to anyone other than my husband and kids for days and days, it didn't take long to reply. Sure, I said, see you shortly. As I hurriedly pulled on a green tropical print dress over my swimsuit, I wondered what she could possibly have to drop off. We haven't seen each other for weeks now, and I'm pretty sure she had already brought over the last things she borrowed. I hurried the children through getting dressed, keen to see my friend, even from a distance. My phone lit up again. I'm here. I ran outside. The bumpy gravel was uncomfortable under my feet and reminded me I hadn't yet put on shoes. I saw her black car by the gate, the brake lights glowing red as she finished reversing. I opened the gate. She handed me a cake through the open window. It's Kevin's birthday, she said. We had to do something. I was touched. She didn't have to do this, but I understood why she had. She hesitated, as did I. We were both reluctant to let the moment go. We didn't want to break it, that moment of social interaction that we both needed. In the end, my neighbour broke the moment. She opened the gate, clad in her government-issued black face mask. Her 3 children, also masked, were close behind. All of them reminded us that socialising isn't allowed now. Kerry waved and drove away, and I turned back to the house. I got inside with the box, and the children were clamouring to see what was inside. We opened it, and the sugary smell of fondant icing hit me in the face. And then we all laughed. The cake was in the shape of a toilet roll.
Wow, that was a gift.
It was a gift this morning. She was very funny.
She's been immortalised. She's been immortalised. That was excellent. That was really good, really pacey. And I wasn't teaching you about pace, but it was very pacey. Great dialogue, all so simple and natural. It worked really well. The emotion was evoked right from the beginning. Everything you did, you showed us the emotion, and I don't think you ever told us, which is what you're not supposed to do, is just tell us. You showed me. I could really feel it along with you, and that was very well done. We also learned quite a lot about you. Where do you live?
Singapore.
So jumping in the pool, I'm so jealous. So I wondered where you'd been, or it'd be warm enough to jump in the pool. I'm glad what you did with the dress. I liked what you did with the, you managed to, your green dress. You managed to show us specifics that would be so easy to take for granted and not notice. So you really paid attention. The bumpy gravel and not putting your shoes on, the red reversing lights, they were great. They were like a beacon. They really shone out. It was excellent. It was funny because you said the black car, and I thought, come on, she must know what brand that car is. But then you used the reversing lights, and immediately it came to life with the reversing lights, which I really liked. You painted a great picture of them all with their black masks and her with the kids behind and your kids and smelling the icing. It was really good, and I'm so glad you did give me her name. So we now feel that Kerry is a human, a person, a character, and we know her husband's called Kevin, and it doesn't matter 2 hoots that we don't know them, that we'll never meet them. The fact that you use their names is a great tool. Using a name is a really good specific, and it might not evoke the same thing to everybody, because everybody will know their own Kerry and everybody will know their own Kevin, and they'll probably put their own picture in there. But it doesn't matter. But it really helps. And there are people who tend to write life stories and say a man came and my brother came and my husband came, and they don't name any of them. The moment you name them, it makes them come to life, even if people don't know them and don't know what they look like. So it's a really good good tool. So so thanks very much. You were very, very good at emotion there, which is usually the thing people find so difficult. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emma.
Next victim.
Carolyn in Italy.
Carolyn in Italy. Hello, Carolyn in Italy.
Hi. So literally my last contact with a human, which I'm always in contact with a human. So I haven't had the experience of not being. With 5 minutes between my WhatsApp tutoring hour with Andrea across town and writing webinar with Joe, I cracked open the kitchen door and peeked my head in to check on Leo, my 10-year-old. He was glued to the iPad, rewatching his stop-motion movie creations of the day. After finishing a few math and history worksheets that have replaced formal schooling, he'd spent the day sifting through Star Wars theme songs and Harry Potter soundtracks, adding just the perfect lightsaber sound effects and magic wand buzzing to the footage he'd recorded yesterday. Don't forget to ride your bike and practice your drums. I did already. Okay. I smiled and slid back to the office down the hall. My head still there with my boy, full of wonder. Who is he becoming? Who will he be when this is all over? That's it. That's as far as I got.
That's very good. That was really nice. Great start, Carolyn. I'm not sure how much I've actually read of yours. I've not read anything of yours that's this genre. It's good. It's really good. It's really natural. Do you write this stuff often?
No, I haven't been writing at all.
It's good. It's really good. It was very compelling. It was very rich writing. Very, very rich. Some people write and it's sort of, it feels like it's been untied a bit, or it's like loose knitting. Yours is like tight knitting. I know, mad metaphor, I know, but yours is very tight and rich. Every word is really, really works. I loved how you introduced, you bam, we were in there meeting Leo. Absolutely could see him. You didn't tell us what colour hair he's got or anything, but we could see this 10-year-old on his iPad, and well done for giving him a name straight off. Doesn't matter that we don't know what he looks like. Really good. And the Star Wars and Harry Potter were really great specifics. We could absolutely catch on to that. The dialogue between you, the interaction was great. And then then your emotions started to come, and it was really nice. I really enjoyed it. I'd love to read more of your stuff. That was really nice. Not that I wouldn't love to read more of the other people's, but it was just really nice for me to hear something so different from you, Carolyn, as I've done stuff with you before. So that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, we have one more.
Okay, that's perfect. Then that'll be just about right for the questions. Great.
Oksana, would you please share?
I'll unmute myself. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Joe, for this exercise. Okay, so I was in our living room, ready to go into my home office and plunge into creating a presentation about the childlike heart mind, a concept developed by a Chinese philosopher Li Ji in the 16th century. Then I heard the steps going downstairs. During these 4 weeks of self-isolation, I learned very well to distinguish between the steps of my sons and my husband. So that was my elder son, Jonathan. I saw an intriguing smile on his face. Something has happened, I thought. Yesterday, I almost ripped off my toenail, he said. I felt my stomach crunched, but I saw he was fascinated by the incident. In his hand, he held a first aid bandage. What? Show me. I knew how painful it could be. My child ripped his toenail for the first time in his life. By the way, the child is 21 by now.
I'm so glad. I had just written down, how old is he? How old is he? And you just told me then. That was, I loved what you did with him. That was, the interaction with him was really good. And I loved what you did with the steps and how you distinguish people through the steps. And it's amazing how in these lockdown times, we actually all are paying so much more attention to so many things. So we've got Emma with her gravel and reversing lights. I wonder whether Emma would have noticed the gravel and her reversing lights if we hadn't had this time of slowing down that we've all had, because I certainly know I am noticing far more, and you noticed the steps, which was really interesting. Loved what you did with the toenail, loved the interaction with him and the dialogue. That was great. What I would have done at the beginning is you talked about, you started off very practical. You moved from the living room to your office to do a presentation on something. And I can't remember a single fact about that, because none of that had any colour. I don't mean to criticise you, Oksana. It's an example for everybody, because yes, it's there, yes, it's true, but we will all remember the toenail, and we will all remember your son and that his name's Jonathan and your interaction. But the beginning bit didn't have yes, it had the specifics of what the presentation was, but I cannot remember one single word that you said. And when people remember things afterwards, that's a sign that what you said worked. And I have forgotten that. And I don't know if anybody else has remembered anything she said there. Be interesting if other people did, and it's just me, but I was interested in the story and the colour. And because you said you moved from your living room to your office, I didn't have a clue where you were or what they were like. So they were they weren't empty words, because living room and office are different. Everybody's got their own idea of what they're like, but I couldn't picture any of it. So if you'd moved from your light and airy living room overlooking a golf course into your expansive attic office overlooking a lake, then I'd have seen it all, and then it would have had the colour, and then I might have remembered your presentation. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I was thinking like of how to, then it felt like that those would be like not significant details for the whole story, but I see how I could have added a little bit like more mood and whatever into that. How was like, yeah,
just little bits, so that we can hang on to that as well.
Yeah.
But I would just like to commend all of you for putting pen to paper and in 5 minutes writing things that is so polished and complete. If it's any indication of what you've all been doing, then well done. That's fantastic. So I would now like to open to any questions. I'm afraid it's going, because you can't all speak together, you're going to have to ask them through the chat. But I really would welcome any questions from anybody if you've got some.
We don't have any currently in the chat.
They might appear. You can start off. You can ask me one, Megan. I'll put you on the spot. Have you got a question?
Do you write in 5-minute increments? Do you find inspiration in doing that?
No, I don't write in 5-minute increments. I probably write for 20 minutes. If I'm going to try and write something complete, I would probably, I think it takes a while to get into the zone, and I think it was great that they all managed to get into it so fast. I probably think that if I get to 20 minutes, then I've got enough substance to then go back to it and add to it later, frankly. But if I'm writing, I was writing a lesson this morning, and that took me an hour to write my lesson, maybe an hour and a half.
Okay.
So I like to have a reasonable expanse of time. But if I'm just writing for fun, like this sort of exercise, then 10 minutes is the time that most people say works. So I was very cruel only giving you 5. I think we've had some questions now, Megan.
Yes, we do. Okay. We have a question from Sue. How much story can you use in nonfiction?
I could say make it 20% of your content, which I'm pulling out of the air. That is not something I've really thought about before. But when you want to make a point, you want people to remember your point. And so I always say when people are writing non-fiction that there are some people who would like to see what you're saying as information, so backed up with research and facts and things like that. There are some people who would like to see it in a chart with a bulleted list, and there will be others who will only remember it if you tell them a story. So at the very least, or at the very most, it should be 1/3 of your content. But I think if you have too much story, people perhaps won't have all the learning experiences that they need. So I would probably say story should be about 20% of your total.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question. This is from Emma. Oh no, we have many questions coming in. It just left my screen. Okay, do you have any tips for overcoming writer's block? I am predominantly a travel writer and I can't get inspired by anything, much less think of ideas to pitch to editors.
Okay, well, that's a really interesting question, because I'm doing lots of online events at the moment because of the lockdown. And last Thursday, I did an interview with a guy called Tom Evans about getting over writer's block. And he's a bit metaphysical, and he has written a book on blocks called Blocks. And if you go to YouTube and key in my name, you will be able, and Tom Evans, you will be able to watch it. If you go to my website, joparfitt.com, and go to the Writers Tools page, you will find lots of free stuff, including the video with Tom. What I would do is, when I teach people to write articles, and by the way, I've been teaching article writing for many years, and I've written a workbook called Definite Articles that you can buy online about how to do this. I always say that you need to spin something you've already written. So I would give my students the exercise of creating one idea for an article and then spinning it 5 different ways, so they're using exactly the same content. So you should still be able to use the same content in a different way. So say, for example, you could perhaps find other ways of mixing other articles together. So you might have been to Belgium and written about vintage shops, and the article was about Belgium, but then you also realized you'd written about vintage shops in Paris, so you could write something on European vintage shops, or on the beauty of vintage shops, or 10 things you need to know about vintage shopping, or how to vintage shop online. There are so many different ways you can try and spin the same content. So I would cheat and exploit what you've got already and brainstorm with yourself. Thank you, Emma. Good question.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question from Carolyn. How do we avoid being too wordy when adding detail? I often leave many details out because it feels like a mouthful.
Now the answer's in the word mouthful. Well, that's one answer. I find that when you read aloud, you find out whether things are working or not. And I think that if you read it aloud and you realize you're getting bored with your own writing, or that your tongue's getting in a knot and you can't actually manage to say all those words without running out of breath or tripping over your tongue, it's a very good indication of whether you have written too much. Yes, of course, you can easily end up over describing. I would just say, if that's the Carolyn who's just been reading, you don't overdo it at all. Probably you're a harsher judge of yourself than other people will be. But the other thing I would always do is, I would say, get some feedback. Join a writer's circle. I've got some online that I'm running at the moment, and I have a thing that I'm doing on in fact in an hour's time, called Speed Write Live, which is free, which people can attend, and they'll get feedback there, and you'll soon find, and that way you don't just get feedback from me, you get feedback from everybody. And getting feedback from me is one thing, but getting feedback from somebody else who's just another person can actually be even more useful, because they are probably your ideal reader. And see what somebody else says. So I hope that's a helpful answer. Okay, we'll have one more.
We have one more question.
Oh.
This is from Jane. Would you recommend doing writing exercises regularly? And if so, why?
Would I recommend writing exercises? I would recommend, it depends where you are in your writing journey. I think it is extremely useful to keep flexing any muscle, whatever it is. And I would recommend new writers follow The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, or read Writing Down the Bones by Natalie Goldberg, and that they start just writing morning pages. I think that learning to write in stories is something that maybe takes a little bit of time, though from the examples we've had today, people are absolute naturals at it. As long as you've had it pointed out and you realize you need to add spice, then you should be able to do it. I think we all need to practice whatever we're doing, but part of that practice goes back to the answer I've just given before. I think one of the best things you can do is be put on the spot, be accountable, be given a deadline of write it now on this for 10 minutes, and then be in a group of people who give you feedback. I think that can be more productive than writing alone and in a vacuum. I honestly think you develop so much in confidence that way, and see what works and what doesn't, that I think that it is incredibly valuable, and it doesn't need to cost you any money. So I would really, really go for that. Okay.
Jo, would you be able to repeat one of the books you just mentioned, or we have a question from Emma.
I mentioned Blocks by Tom Evans.
That was the last question.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my last screen so that you can take a photograph of it, just so that if you wanted to take advantage of any of my freebies, then they can all be accessed from that. I do have lots of online free stuff at the moment, so I would recommend you took advantage of it. So I'm going to share my screen and show it for just a few seconds, and then I'll come back and say goodbye. You'll see that I have written a book called Write Your Life Stories, which is available on Book Depository and Amazon, which teaches you how to write using the SPICE tool in much, much more depth. Monday Morning Emails is a memoir that I co-wrote with Terry Ann Wilson, and shows how I use SPICE and lots of emotion in my own writing. The Muse Motivator is a monthly or weekly prompt that Kath Brew and I are doing between us and putting out on Instagram. It's absolutely free. And then the Jars on a Shelf are a graphic for my Life Story Jar program, which teaches people to write about their lives as legacy. So I hope you find some of that useful. Everything on this page, apart from if you bought a book, of course, is absolutely free. So thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions for me, my website's joparfitt.com. You can email me through that, or you can just email me at jo@joparfitt.com.
Thank you so much, Jo, for sharing. This has been profoundly useful, and thank you all for sharing your stories and your writing during this session. Again, I'd like to remind you that this will be a recording live on FIGT's website for the next 30 days. After that, it'll be archived under the membership site. If you have any questions, please feel free to email FIGT's website for admin @figt.org. If you have any more questions, of course, Jo has invited you to reach out to her. So thank you again.
Thank you for inviting me. FIGT. Thank you to the FIGT team who I've been dealing with.
All right. Take care, everyone.